Welcome to the Capital Cannabis community. Can I get everybody's attention, please? We're starting the meeting. Could everybody please stop talking so we can start the meeting? Thanks. My name's Ron, and I work for Dope Magazine, and I'm a community activist, and this is our Capital Cannabis community. It used to be the Normal meeting. There's no real news on whether Normal is going to start its own meetings or not, but apparently they're going to have a board meeting. So without any further ado, here's Granddaddy Mike.
Hello, folks. Welcome to the third meeting of the Capital Cannabis community. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I know there's somewhat of an inclement weather situation, so we appreciate the extra effort it took for you all to get here. And I also want to welcome the people that are out there in podcast land that are listening to this broadcast and not physically present. You are here in our thoughts. We have a number of important speakers here tonight. I'm just going to give you a quick preview of what we're going to do, and then we'll start doing it. First of all, first speaker is Dale Schafer. Second speaker is going to be Aaron O'Niel. Third speaker is going to be Kelly from Pure Life, if he makes it before the musical interlude. Then we're going to have a musical interlude for about 10 minutes, after which John Lee and I are going to speak, and then finally Ron's going to conclude. So that's
from our side, it makes me angry to think about people in jail. I just did 5 years in prison for a plan, for trying to get pot to people. That makes me very angry. But being angry doesn't help it. We have to take our feelings about being lied to and having our kids incarcerated, us being threatened, spending money on attorneys who shouldn't have to pay for the threat of all this stuff, and turn it into some action. Okay? So, as we
about with someone that you don't know. All right. So every day, have a positive cannabis conversation with somebody that you don't know. And Bob, we're thinking of you and wishing you well and a quick and complete recovery. Okay, so moving right along, we're going to hear from Aaron now. Aaron O'Niel comes to us off of a recent victory. He was with YOLO Botanicals, and he's going to tell us about his recent travails. And I think we're going to hear something about a still pending case. All right, so here's about 10 minutes of Aaron O'Niel. Warm welcome, please, for Aaron.
And congratulations, Mike, for your award this week for the most. You're a great cannabis activist. Okay. All right. Everybody, give a round of applause for Granddaddy Mike. Cool. I guess I'm a little bit more of an idealist. No offense, Mr. Schafer, but I'd like to tell you about my experience. First of all, a little bit about myself. I'm a patient. I have a collective. I'm a felon. I'm on probation, prohibited from medical marijuana use by a judge. Yeah. I defended a 346 plant grow in El Dorado County. I did it with no endorsement from any organization, no court support. I defended 215 as it was written, as it was supposed to be, with patients. Sick patients, patients who died. Jury came back 12-0, unanimous decision, not guilty, in 3.5 hours. Yeah. And I asked myself, how can that be? How is this possible? I was very frightened. But the public is on our side now. I'm not morose about our chances anymore. This was huge. The jury told the judge that the doctor is more important than him. And that's how 215 was written. I stand on the shoulders of giants. The doctor is more important than the judge, okay? That's why I told you guys that. I was prohibited by a judge, a big judge, Wagner, in El Dorado County, from any contact with cannabis, marijuana, their word. And the jury, after the judge told the jury that he was the law, my attorney got up and told the jury, you are the law. You are the final say. You are the trier of fact. And they said that my doctor was more important than the judge that oversaw my case and the judge that prohibited me from cannabis. That's how big that was. Oh, I never stopped, my friend. I never stopped. I took that judge's order and I said, pardon the French, fuck you. I'm going to see my doctor and get a recommendation, and I'm going to do this. Absolutely. They're the trier of fact. Come on. They got up there and said my collective was legit. I did everything like I was supposed to do. And this is not for the faint of heart, and it cost me a lot of money, and it cost me a lot of personal anguish and tears. My child was taken from me. I was threatened with CPS. I happened to be in the right place at the right time. I had the money. I had everything on my side to fight this case, and I did. I stood up for 215, and we won it. And we can win this fight too. We can win this fight. We can win the fight. We don't have to accept. Give me 50 people that will give me 5 hours a week. That's what's missing from this equation. Facebook is not organizing. It's not. Organizing is talking to people, getting names and phone numbers, people that will commit, like my collective did. Sue Colomb, Kavai Floyd, my dear friend John DeValera, who died during this witch hunt, who I was able to read his testimony into record. And the bailiff cried. I've been a strong proponent of MCLR from the beginning, and I'm a strong proponent now. And if you will give me your name and number and you will commit to 3 to 5 hours a week, we can get the signatures we need. We have a huge win and there's blood in the water. And I'm not leaving El Dorado County. I'm still there. I'm still going to fight till every single cannabis case is dismissed. But every patient is left alone. If anybody wants to join me, please give me your name and your phone number. I will not give it to anybody else. We need to organize around this fight and quit fighting amongst each other and hurting each other and saying bad things. I know we've been hurt by the authorities. They pitted us against each other. Turned some of us into people who cooperated. I don't know. It makes us hard to trust. But you can trust me. We can win this fight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Give it up for Aaron. Thank you, Aaron. Our hearts are open to the suffering of your struggle and the sacrifice that it warranted. And we're certainly uplifted by your victory and celebrate that with you. So congratulations. Join us. Yes, let's join him. Let's all become winners. I think I've said it before. I love cannabis. I don't want anything to get between me and my cannabis, and I don't want anything to get between me and getting as much cannabis to all of you as I can. So someone else is with us tonight. I mentioned earlier we were going to hear from Kelly at Pure Life. Those of you who have been attending regularly for the last year or so have heard Kelly's updates periodically. He's come and visited us and talked to us about his travails. I'm so glad. I'm not gonna skip to the punchline, but I am so glad that we ended up with a court victory in this case. And so we need a happy ending here, and we're going to hear it from Kelly. Warm, please, applause to welcome Kelly. He's going to talk about the recent struggles of Pure Life.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, so those of you that have been following us, it was a long road all the way through. We had a patient collective brick and mortar storefront approved by El Dorado County. So we have a letter written with Board of Supervisors, Sheriff, District Attorney, all copied on this letter saying we were within state guidelines and county guidelines to do what we were doing. And they came in 6 months after sending us that letter, told us we've been investigating you the whole time anyways, spending your money, or El Dorado County's money, taxpayer money, to investigate us, even though they had given us the permission. They cleaned out all of my bank accounts, all of my other businesses' accounts. They tried to bleed me out, tried to push me into what I think they were trying to push me into a black market to make moves that we shouldn't be making to save my family, because that's what you do. I didn't do it. We fought, and they kept delaying. They didn't charge us for 6 months. We finally asked for a return of property after 6 months because my lawyer says, you know, they've got 3 years on a felony. You can sit for 3 years and they'll just bleed you out. Normally defense doesn't go after, doesn't ask to speed things up. Everyone usually just tries to hold back. And I said, we can't do that. I see members every day. I go into the community and it breaks my heart every day. We were fortunate enough to work with Xenia Gilg out of San Francisco. She was amazing, spearheaded a great team with David Weiner, a local attorney, defense attorney, Dane Weiner, and Roland Tiemann, who is now running for judge in El Dorado County. So anybody that has a vote up there, Tiemann is our guy. He's definitely fair. He's definitely honest and wants to make sure that the right thing's done. So we went through our process, kept delaying. Every time I'd go to the court, the lawyers would tell me, oh, it's another couple weeks. This nightmare is going to be over. I can't believe there's no county in the state that's pressing these types of charges, especially with written consent from the county that you can do it. It just was, we felt entrapped very much so, felt very misled because we always wanted to do everything by the books. And, you know, that's what we were, annoyingly by the books. All of our members that vended with us, we 1099, every single one of them. My CPA is like, Kelly, I know I told you to do it, but how the F did you get these guys to give up their info? And it was like, I assured them it was safe because we were doing the right thing. We're following the guidelines they've set forward and moving forward with that. Through pretrial, it was a parade of the truth, which was scary because the truth in what we saw and the investigators were very ignorant, and they did not have the knowledge of what the state laws were and what, you know, they didn't educate themselves. They had a very sided view, and they didn't care. They kept bringing up that nope, it's completely illegal to trade anything monetary value for cannabis, any way, shape, or form. We're like, okay, well, we know all this case law. The judge took his time, and when we finally got it to pretrial, it was normal pretrials, you know, 1 to 2 days. It's pretty black and white on what's going on. We had a 6 days of pretrial to get all the evidence out there so that Judge Malekian could make the right decision. And then after he had all the volumes of testimony and case law and previous court proceedings, he took, I think, about 7.5 weeks in total, 2 different delays to make his decision because he wanted to make the right decision. And in the end, he spoke to the jury. He told everybody, I don't want to hear anybody, or not to the jury, to the crowd, I don't want to hear anybody booing. I don't want to hear anybody hollering or hooplawing. And I'm going to tell you, and then the next thing was very matter-of-factly, there's not evidence to support this case. I dismissed all charges. We had 9 felony counts. They were all dismissed. It was about a course of 15 months. I was only locked up for about an hour. Oh, no, not true. 4 hours, 5 hours, an evening. Knowing what I know now, information out to you, everyone. If you know what you're doing is right and you want to get through and into the system quicker, because that's how you get out of the system quicker, is get it into it, you stay in jail. 72 hours is all they can hold you, and then they have to arraign you. And so they push, because they didn't send us our discovery for like 45 days. They didn't send any of this stuff for so delayed, you know, and they didn't arraign us officially until we requested our return of our property. And it was at that point that we were calling their cards, and we want to see, I know what I'm doing is right. Give me my stuff back. And they never told me that we couldn't operate, but the lead investigator told me, if you open up, I'm going to come back in tomorrow and arrest you for the same thing. So my wife and me, being family people, couldn't afford to, you know, fortunately they didn't take my kids, but they did take one of my employees' kids from her, who was just a bud tender. All she did was, she was a manager, but she was a bud tender. And, you know, she got pulled into it, and she lost her kids for like 6 months as well. And they became part of the CPS, and, you know, and then, yeah, it was just a mess. So and this place right here became a very, very safe, happy place for me. I came here so scared, so like broken, and these people took me in and made me family. That I will never forget. This community is so strong, and we just need to, like Aaron was saying, we need to use our power to work together, because we can move mountains. We really can. There's no point in initiative versus initiative. We're all on the same team. We need to move forward in a positive direction. And I want to thank everybody here for listening to me, and everybody here who supported me and helped me through this. I don't know if I would have stayed with it. Does anybody have any other questions? I don't know.
Wow. Well, wasn't that moving and refreshing to hear a victory story? 2 in a row tonight. And yet we celebrate with limitations, folks, because we're still hearing about custody situations, about families being broken up, about lives being attacked and destroyed. And I know many of us have enough integrity to reflect every once in a while about there but for the grace of the goddess go I. So keep in mind, we do have a lot more work to do. So at this point in the program, we're going to have a brief musical interlude. This is Hecate's Riddle. Hecate's Riddle. And while they're setting up, I just want to do a brief shout out to Dope Magazine. Ron's been passing around complimentary copies. I want to just bring your attention to the fact that at the top of this copy it says this is the advocacy issue and it is free. So this is at least one cannabis magazine company that regularly donates what they consider helpful and empowering information at events like this. So maybe a little appreciation for Dope Magazine for getting us these free copies and Ron for delivering them. And I just want to point out to you the cover story is about Bernie Sanders, and it says a growing movement, or I think it's supposed to be a growing movement. But we know we're involved in a growing movement. All right, so we're going to have a brief little interlude here, and then when we come back, John and I are going to speak for a few minutes about MCLR and this Lifetime Achievement Award that I got. So I guess I better go get it from the car because you probably want to see it, right? I didn't want to be so presumptuous as to wear it. But I could be talked into it later.
All right, see if we can hear me. All right, we're ready to go.
Check, check.
Can you hear okay?
All right. Gonna do a little.
Here we go.
We're gonna start off with somebody
Settle down,
else's
Ron.
music and then go to mine and then go back to somebody else's. How's that work for you? Well, here you go again, you see. You want your freedom. Well, who am I to keep you down? It's only right that you should play it the way you feel it. Listen carefully to the sound of a loneliness like a heartbeat drives you mad. In the stillness of remembering what you had. And what you had. what you lost. Oh, thunder only happens when it's raining. Players only love you when they're playing. Sad women, they will come and they will go. When the rain washes you clean, you know. Well, here I go again. I see the crystal visions. I keep my visions to myself. It's only me who wants to wrap around your dreams. And have you any dreams you'd like to sell? Dreams of loneliness like a heartbeat drives you mad. In the stillness of remembering what you had, what you lost, what you had, and what you lost. Oh, thunder only happens when it's raining. Players only love you when they're playing. I said women, they will come and they will go. When the rain washes you clean, you'll know. Oh, thunder only happens when it's raining. Players only love you when they're playing. I said women, they will come and they will go. When the rain washes you clean, you know. Oh, I said you know. Oh, yes, you know. Oh, you know. Thank you.
All right, now what?
And this is my favorite of all the ones that I've written. And I don't mind when it rains, for the rain it don't cause no one no pain. The darkness, though it's driving me insane, till the water comes and brings me round again. I don't mind when it rains. I met a man on a stormy autumn day. He kissed me and then he went away. He gave me his number, said to call. Will he be there to catch me if I fall? I don't mind when it rains. And when the thunder and lightning comes, it'll spin my head around. The rain falling on the tin roof makes an awesome lonely sound. Makes me want to find that one my heart can't do without. Until then, I guess I will just sit here watching the rain. And I don't mind when it rains, for the rain, it don't cause no one no pain. The darkness, though it's driving me insane, till the water comes and brings me round again. I don't mind when it rains. I know it takes some trust to say those words, I love you. I don't know if I'd risk it if I could, 'cause I don't want to go there all alone. Why can't we just hang out here and get stoned? I don't mind when it rains. And I don't mind when it rains. Thank you.
What's up?
Okay. Oh no.
You want the mic? Oh.
I will go anywhere with you. I'll stay with you through the night. I will love you till the end of my days. You make me feel like summertime all the time. You make me feel like rain. You make me feel like I'm up on a cloud, looking down at the world below. We will be like lovers forever. We'll still walk around hand in hand. We will talk all evening together, sharing dreams, planning our lives. You make me feel like summertime all the time. You make me feel like dancing in the rain. You make me feel like I'm up on a cloud, looking down at the world below. Thank you. One more? Done. All right, we're going to move on for the rest of the meeting. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you. A warm round of applause, please, for our performers tonight. There's usually a time in the meeting where we ask anybody here for the first time, please raise your hands. Wow, we got a number of people here. You're not here for the first time. Come on, Aaron. Give me a break. You're not here for the first time, Jason. Anybody else need their name called out and raise their hands when they're really not here for the first time? Okay, so those of you who are here for the first time, I hope you feel warmly welcomed into this community. We would like to give you an opportunity to just introduce yourselves if you care to. You don't need to. Bear in mind that this is going out on a webcast, so anything that you say is going to be available to the rest of the world. Is there anybody who'd like to introduce themselves and just say a few words so we know who you are and where you come from? Yes, sir. Come on up. You need to use the microphone or else nobody will hear you, especially on the podcast. Yes, just your name and briefly who you are and why you're here.
My name is Chris, and I live over in Yolo County, and we've just recently, the city council has approved indoor grow only. It's 12.5 square feet by 12.5 square feet, as tall as you want, no wattage variation. So I'm just, they got to figure out the whole health and safety and all that. So I thought I'd come over here and sit in and see if I could gather whatever little bits of information I could get to help us along our way.
Well, we hope to empower you with knowledge, sir. And if you have any questions, you can ask them later, or you can certainly introduce yourselves to other members that have come up and spoken. Anyone else like to introduce themselves today? First timers? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Haley, and I'm from up the hill in Placerville, and I've gotten the pleasure of knowing Kelly the past 4 or 5 years throughout all of this stuff, and it's really cool to come here and see you guys because I've heard about you guys and I've heard about the normal meetings, and I do have the pleasure of also working with Kelly, so I really want to get to know what's going on currently so I can help tell other people through our facility that we have where we can openly speak with people like we can openly speak here, which is a really special thing to have with people. So thanks.
Thank you, and welcome. And it's a pleasure to see that Kelly has such qualified help. And we know that there's a larger community standing behind him up there than even could possibly fill this room. So congratulations on that. You know how much support in the community really defines your power and your reach, and gives you an opportunity to demonstrate your effectiveness. All right, last call for anybody that wants to introduce themselves that's a newcomer. Otherwise, we're going to get on with this agenda. All right, so next we're going to bring up John Lee. And John Lee, later in the program, is going to talk about MCLR, but he's got something different on his mind right now. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Granddaddy. Hi, everybody. John Lee. For the new folks, I have been here several times. I want to thank everybody here. Of course, Ron and Keith and Granddaddy and everybody for having us. This has always been, to me, a focal point for advocacy in California, and I'm always glad to be here. And I'm going to sit down if you don't mind. I usually like to stand, but bad leg today, so I'm going to hang in there. Plus, I have a few things to say. In particular, I'm glad to be here. Ron and I talked, and most of the folks that have been, I said SAC Normal was SAC Normal and the evolution of this particular group. And one thing we know about is our host here at the mic here today is Granddaddy. And I was fortunate this last weekend to attend the Investors Conference in San Francisco. And at that event, Granddaddy was presented a Lifetime Achievement Award. And it was, yeah, it was really something special. It was really something special, and for one standpoint only, and Ron and I were talking about it a little ago, not many people in your lifetime have a chance to do something and you can achieve it, and Mike's had an interesting journey through it. So if you don't mind, I wanted to read what Medicinal Mike prepared for the awards banquet at the event. We had a nice concert afterwards with a Pink Floyd cover band and a Led Zeppelin cover band, and Medicinal Mike had put together something written also by Tommy Lucero to help do this. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read through this, and this is something very important for everybody who's known Granddaddy and what he's done up in this area, but for me personally as well. So Mike, if you don't mind, I'm going to read through this, and everybody hang in here with me. This is very important to all of us, and again, these are the successes. We've had several of them tonight, obviously with Aaron and the folks here, and we also heard something that's very important to all of us too about the art of war. The gentleman mentioned this, and it is indeed a war that we always face. And sometimes the biggest item out of that book for me has been about distractions. In this case, this is just the opposite. These are the successes we have to embrace. And so if you don't mind, again, I'd like to read through this. This is from Medicinal Mike's speech at the Investment Seminar Awards. He says, I'm here today with the rare and truly auspicious privilege of introducing an iconic leader of the cannabis industry, and has for decades been the man with the personal stash, the one and only Granddaddy Mike Grafton. A man that not only we trust and respect, but a man that was also trusted and believed in enough by Robert Kennedy himself that he assisted with him and with his college fees at the esteemed Ivy League College of Harvard. Mike is celebrating the golden relationship with cannabis and has long been recognized as a visionary with an incredible ability to manifest his vision. He is brilliant yet personable, and both sets and upholds an unequaled character and ethical standard for himself and his colleagues. He is committed to the highest and best business practices in all his endeavors. Granddaddy Mike is on a decades-long quest for talent and outstanding product. Those in the East Coast can thank him for bringing the original Silver Haze strain to their neighborhood. By being more dedicated to empowering those around him than acquiring power for himself, he has become one of the best networking connectors in the industry. He's put his own freedom on the line and was arrested in 1970 on numerous federal charges that were thankfully dropped later. Through selfless acts on more than just that occasion, we resulted in a DEA raid which began. To this day, no charges have been filed. Again, no charges have been filed. All this in just 6 short years after his emergence from the smoke of Can America. He is a true pioneer of the cannabis community and an articulate, prolific advocate working with the California Cannabis Policy Reform and later as a board member with Americans for Policy Reform. A man we've all come to know and love and respect, above even myself, and again, that's Medicinal Mike talking, the one and only Granddaddy Mike. So I'm not going to stop there. I have to read a couple other things that were at the result of this, some facts about Granddaddy, and it's important for all of us to understand. For a long time, we didn't know about Granddaddy, and he chose to step forward. And see, these are some of the key points, if I can. He was awarded the Hardy Gold Medal for Leadership as the honor graduate of the New York Military Academy. He was appointed to West Point by Senator Robert F. Kennedy, but diverted to Harvard when Senator Kennedy paid his application fee at Harvard. He brought the original Silver Haze to the East Coast and owns an undistributed original Haze posters, which you can still get from him. I'm sure he'll be glad to talk to you about that. Arrested on dozens of federal charges and later dismissed. He was a Harvard graduate with advanced degree in education and clinical psychology from Georgia State. Doctoral fellow of Langley Port Neuropsychiatry Institute at UCSF, specializing in emergency care, crisis management and interventions, short-term therapies. That help comes in handy for all of us, I'm sure, right? Emerged from the shadows of the underground cannabis community only 6 years ago, and I'm proud to know him since then. Established the Granddaddy Mike Collective, the original Hayes Growers Collective, certified packaging services, nitrogen flush packaging, and the Granddaddy Mike Private Supper Club. At Seattle's Hemp Fest in September of 2013, he was publicly acknowledged as, we all know, a genius cannabis chemist with cutting-edge technology. At the Emerald Cup in 2013, he moderated both the Visionaries and the Best Practices panels. And the same month, he was featured in Skunk Magazine regarding certified packaging. He's contributed to the development of numerous cannabis products. He's won multiple honors and for different products, including 30-plus awards for best concentrates. He was rated by the DA in 14. Who exercised in a search warrant and the seizure of all his products and assets. A lien was filed against him. To date, no charges have been filed. And over the last 5 years, Granddaddy has been an articulate advisor to cannabis policy reform, initially working with the California Cannabis Policy, and later as a board member with Americans for Policy Reform, and a drafting proponent of the MCLR initiative, Marijuana Control Legalization Act. He's on the board of SAC Normal. He was traveled throughout the state of California and San Diego and shares recipients with folks like Tommy Chong, Julian Marley, and others. So once again, I think it was very important. He's a personal friend. He's a friend to all of us. He's chosen to do what he has done for all of us. It couldn't have been said much better. And so again, I want to certainly acknowledge him. Grandy, I'm sure will stay around and allow us to observe and take photos with him with the belt. And this is something important above all else that we should recognize, not only somebody that stood for all of us, but success for all of us. So thank you, Granddaddy. Thank you. So Granddaddy's going to say a few words here in advance of me doing some other things, but I think he certainly has some important thoughts that he needs to share with us all.
Well, folks, I was extremely appreciative and humbled to be so honored. I'm, as you know, I'm only here because I love cannabis. I love her. I do. We're no longer in the cannabis movement just grooving up slowly. We're coming out of the closet, and we're looking good. We're looking good. We really are. Now is a great time to be alive in the cannabis movement. As was mentioned, 50th anniversary. This is literally my 50th year consuming cannabis. So think about that for a little while. And realize, some of you, I've told this story before, I started facilitating the availability of cannabis to other people within days of my having gotten stoned the first time, because it was the only way I could afford to get more, right? So that's where I started in this industry. Cannabis has done so much for me. Cannabis has brought me here today. I would not have been able to finish financing any of my undergraduate or graduate degrees without cannabis, right? I would not have learned the professions that I've learned without cannabis. So I would not be here or be here now without the love and support of cannabis. I think it's important to keep in mind that when people call me a visionary, for me, that definition is really being able to step back every once in a while and take a longer view. Okay, not just look at what's immediate, what's today, what's tomorrow, what's happening this month, but to back up and look out 6 months, a year, 5 years, and set goals and make plans and start taking initially baby steps, but commit myself with intent to move on and manifest what needs to be done. And I know all of you do that to some extent in your life. And my advice to you, if you want people to look at you as a visionary, is that you step back every once in a while. Get your ego out of the picture, get your own self-interest out of the picture, and stop and think about what role cannabis can have not only in your life and the lives of people around you, but the role of cannabis in our society. The part that cannabis can play in healing all of us, in healing our communities, in healing our countries, and eventually in healing the world. So I'm also very cognizant of the fact that, well, actually, when I first heard that I was going to get this award, I thought, oh, that's nice. And then I thought immediately how undeserving I was and how many hundreds of people that I knew that I thought should have gotten this award before me, perhaps instead of me. And I wondered whether or not I could get out of making an acceptance speech by convincing somebody else that there was someone more worthy. I shit you not. I also enlisted the aid of a close friend of mine and told him that if 10 minutes before it was time for the award to be given, I really couldn't handle it. Would he meet me at the corner bar for some margaritas and tequila shots while we waited out the time that it was going down? But nevertheless, I see the people who have suffered and sacrificed. I know we've persevered in the face of vast adversity. I know that we have been involved in a very real war. And yet, I also realize that we have persevered. We have outgrown our opposition every single year of my career. Every single year, we grow more than they can possibly seize from us. Every single year, we've continued to make cannabis available to people in spite of a billion-dollar budget and high technology and our adversaries. But for the plant, for cannabis, for the movement, for the others whose names we do not know, they, we, you have already changed the world. I love cannabis. I love her for all that she is. She is the date that has brought me to this dance, and I continue to love her. But now is the time for all of us to define our futures and accomplish the great events which will continue to change the world. And this was an event where people were, it was like predators and prey circling each other in a small pond. Okay, there were the investors who wanted to come in and make a lot of profits on the industry. There were the people, some of whom had been in the industry for a while, some of whom had just come into the industry, who were all looking for big investor dollars. And so this was, for me, the new frontier of the cannabis industry. And it was called investing, right? And I watched a Shark Tank type event go on the first night of the event. And people were competing with pitches to raise money to get their products out and funded by these venture capitalists. And I watched in the course of about an hour and a half of presentations, one of the venture capitalists pull out a check and write a check for $2 million for one of these startup companies. So this was like not messing around. These people were very serious. And I thought, if you can come up with $2 million to fund an automated, monitored, high-tech indoor grow operation, why don't I make a pitch to everybody for $2 million to get cannabis on the ballot here in California, right? I mean, here's an investment that would help all of us. Here's an investment that would float all the boats, right? through these shark-infested waters. And I want to let you know I was disappointed. In spite of that pitch, I didn't have anybody come up and write me a check for $2 million, right? Well, I wasn't surprised. Because this industry, I want to let you know, even though here in California we grow the best and the most weed in the country, and here in California we need the best legalization plan in the country, we are winning the war on drugs, on cannabis here. I wonder, why are we negotiating the peace? Why aren't we negotiating the peace on our terms? And I want to let you know that, as many of you have come to realize, I have come to realize that the potential of our industry can't survive the fatally flawed Adult Use Marijuana Act, ALMA. Okay? John later will talk to you about why we believe ALMA is fatally flawed. But I want to talk about the fact that we need to come together. If you don't step forward now, not only the people in this room, not only the people that are listening on the podcast, but all of the activists, all of the cannabis consumers, all of the cannabis producers, all of the cannabis distributors, all of the cannabis retailers, if we do not all come forward now with the money to change cannabis policy, if we don't do some real soul searching and reach deep into our pockets now and come up with the money, then we won't have the future of cannabis that you and I and all those other unnamed people really want. It's not going to happen, folks. ALMA isn't going to give it to us. I don't think, frankly, ALMA is going to pass. If it does, I don't think it's going to hold up in court. And if it passes both of those hurdles, it's only a temporary respite. And if it doesn't pass, then we've got MRSA to deal with. And we all know that MRSA was basically, drafted by the cops. It was drafted by our opposition with some concessions to us. But, I say to you that every one of us needs to be an activist. I don't get this award simply because I am an activist. I get this award because I am empowered by all of the other activists who take the time to give me a few minutes so that I can say a few words. And mostly what I want to share with you is, my love for this plant, my love for what it has done in my life, in the lives of the people that I know have been touched by it. And I need all of you to make a commitment, right? Aaron was talking earlier, 5 hours from each person in this room would have a tremendous impact. If each person in this room could enlist 5 other people that could give 5 hours a week, that would make a tremendous impact. And that's the only way that this grassroots movement, right, can ever have the momentum and the power so that people in leadership positions like John and myself and some other people can exercise that power to get us the lifestyle that we really deserve and warrant, right? But it will not work if you sit back and say, well, there's Mike. He got a Lifetime Achievement Award. He must be really good at this. He can go be my activist, right? It doesn't work like that, folks. I need each of you to be an activist. And I'm happy to speak for you, and I'm happy to represent you. But I can't be an activist organizer without activists to organize, right? So I encourage you, please, to join with me and get organized. I want to end. I wanted to end my acceptance speech too, but I didn't get to it because my time got. So by the way, I had Boston George Jung. Some of you may realize his life was depicted in the movie Blow. Right. I had him as a guest. He actually happens to be an old friend of mine. When he was Boston George, I was, a Harvard undergraduate, just trying to make ends meet. But we happened to have the same defense lawyer who got me out on that first whole flood of federal charges when I was 19 years old. All right, I was precocious then. Now I'm older, I have gravitas, but earlier, yes, I was just a precocious kid. Anyway, George was the person that I knew wouldn't mind me pointing to him as someone who has moved more weed than I have in my career, and who could validate that I wasn't getting an award for moving weed. I was getting an award for activism. So here's George, right? George stole the show. I took the mic and used up 8 of the 12 minutes that I had. So that's why I'm giving some of this speech tonight and didn't give it that night. But what I wanted to close with, I told some stories in here about, riding on the bus with Willie Nelson and Snoop Dogg, and another name I'm going to drop here now is Hunter Thompson. So I was in Hunter Thompson's house, and he said to me, and with Hunter, I attribute this quote to Hunter just because he's the one that told it to me, right? But with Hunter, it was sometimes difficult to tell whether or not it was original or whether or not he was quoting somebody else, especially when he said it. But it goes like this. Life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty and well-preserved body, but rather a skin-in broadside in a cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, "Wow, what a ride!"
Thank you, Granddaddy. I'm going to reach around. I got to grab something out of my folder there. Is this going to reach around? I'm going to put this down 1 second. I'll hand it back to Mike 1 second.
So John is now going to segue from my acceptance speech into some news about where we are with MCLR right now. I know everybody's really interested. And so once again, a warm applause, please, for John Lee, MCLR.
Thank you, Granddaddy. And again, thanks to Granddaddy. And again, thanks for everybody for hearing what he had to say and for understanding the value of long-term advocacy and his mission to get us all out there to do as well. Tough times at this particular situation to describe anything other than the facts where everybody is at. And so for new people here, I apologize. I'm not going to go through the history of advocacy and the initiative process. I'm going to give some situations about what we're dealing with right now. Quite simply, there's 500 cities and counties in the state of California. Do you know how many have bans currently?
245.
He cheated. More. So half the cities and counties have been banned as a result of MRSA. And we know about the March 1st date and the so-called mistake that was corrected by AB 21, but there's no going backwards. So we live in a land of MRSA and live in a world of bans. And that's going to continue on unless we do something at the ballot box. So now, reality is that we understand what the ALMA initiative has said and publicly acknowledged that they have 25% of their signatures. Dale mentioned, he said 1 million. It's over 2.25 million now. Sean Parker himself has put in 1 million to that project. So we're not unrealistic to assume that maybe they can gather signatures, but there's another issue at hand. And normally for myself and MCLR, I think everybody understands. We're about trying to create some level of cooperation and unity. Unity is a word that we've used up pretty well in this industry since 2010, that it's lost some level of meaning, but now we've come to a point where there's a couple players left. The history was that we did have 3 players. 6 months ago, CCHI, ourselves, and Reform CA were still vying to get to the ballot. A lot of us were asked to hold off and wait for the Reform CA group, to wait for their language, wait for their effort, because they put MCLR off in 14, because they would give us the golden document that would send us to the right legalization. And they disappointed us. And since they've withdrawn. So without going into the history of that and the heartfelt difficulties that each one of the individuals with that group felt, and again, I'm not talking about individuals, it's just the disappointment of the group and the final leadership decision to not give us what we needed, MCLR was left standing with CCHI. CCHI, as of this date, I've not heard if they've reached the 25% plateau, and I know they're running short of time. MCLR version 7, we've begun collecting signatures on that one-page document, which is a little bit different than what you've heard me speak about for a long time here. MCLR was built around community involvement. It was a one-page document that everybody in here and throughout the state contributed for many years. We contributed to that. As we got nearer to the finish line, we realized that the investors, the public, everybody involved may go different directions. We may need to make sure that we had a player in each position. So we filed other versions. As it turned out, late in the game, in jumped Sean Parker and his group. They were the late arrivers. They were the disruptors. They did not reach out to the community, which is well known, as much as we had hoped. And as a result of their entering into the game again, Reform CA backed away and has withdrawn. Through that period, our 20-plus page MCLR version 3 carried the day and was certainly the best legalization language available still to this date. Unfortunately, as everybody has heard us ask since December and before and for years, it requires money. And Sean Parker and his group stepped forward with that magic number. They had money. Nothing has changed but our language, but we never were able to get off the ground to fund version 3. As of this day, we are not collecting on version 3 on any organized effort with less than 45 days left. So we understand the reality. We came out with version 7. Version 7 is a one-page document. Everybody in the room should be familiar with and needs to be familiar with. It's a one-page document that you can download, print, sign at home, get 4 other signatures along with your own, and send it in. And you can print more and you can hit the streets with it. Aaron mentioned he's going to get out and do it. Well, this is the time we've run into. We're in a very short time with very few options left. And I need to say something about ALMA, as Granddaddy has said. I normally don't discuss against other efforts, but now is the time where the gloves have to be off to some extent. We have to face reality. There is no time left. There's no discussion about what we'll do later. Let's have a nice meeting in the background. And there's been some points that have come to light, and I'm not going to speak about the actions behind them. I'm going to speak about the information that's provided from legal entities. One in particular is a single subject rule. It's a fear that we all have in the document. I'm not going to address the details, but it's something that could challenge the document in court and in advance of court if it moves forward with some legal action that could jeopardize the entire document. So that's a concern that we have. And I'm going to talk about a couple other concerns, and the reason we have them, it was presented late in the game, and anybody who's writing legalization language for a state like California, could you imagine you would do it on the first go-around? I don't care if you hire the best attorneys in the world, the best advocates, especially if you don't communicate with the good majority of us. Is there any chance you're going to get it right the first time, especially when it's 62 pages of language? Not possible. And I'm a businessman. I know how to write language. I write business plans and organizational structure information for businesses to get certified all the time. So they then had, after 30 days, a little chance to amend it. They listened to a few things and they amend it, and that's the only go-around. Well, there's some significant flaws built into it. Besides what I suggested may or may not be an issue with the single subject, we certainly are concerned about bans. And bans will continue. ALMA does not allow the protections that it may believe. If you dig into the document, and again, I'll reference what Dale said, is we need to know what's in the content of the document. It's one thing to say, okay, great, ALMA's out here, we've got a legalization, they got money, let's go after it, that's what we want. Let's read it. How many people have read 62 pages of ALMA? But you're going to vote for it? You're going to sign the paper and you're going to put it on the ballot? Okay.
So I read it and I ain't voting for it.
So my question to you is to, number one, take the time to do it if you're going to make that decision, but I'm going to tell you there's other things in that issue. Without local control voting, you can still ban in there. It allows local control to ban entirely any access. Include that with your personal grow possible limitations based on local bans, which can be 0. Those options are in there. We can make a brown state, which we're already doing. So there's no turning back. It's a small step forward in some instances, but it's certainly not recovering from MRSA. MCLR does not do that. MCLR stops the bans. Bans are only allowed via local voter approval. I could almost stop now. I've been talking about this for a long time. My personality, who I am and what I am is irrelevant at this point. There are very few options. If you want bans to continue, that can occur under MRSA. We already know it. And we're all fighting at the local level. Look at all the stories and the wins we have. But MRSA himself, Mr. Bonta, one of the fellows behind MRSA, at the convention said to me directly, said in the convention, you can work it out with lower advocacy in the individual regions. So our huge armies of people are going to get out there and fix this everywhere. So we challenged him, and I challenged him after his session and said, will you come to my municipality and say that you don't agree with bans? Because he said he believes there should be access. So here's a man who wrote the language and is signed off for bans, but we're challenging him. Would you be willing to step forward and come to my region that has a ban and say, you know, this isn't quite right, we need to fix this? He couldn't do it. He couldn't do it because of the so-called constitutional issue with local control having their rights and because of the obvious issues that we're moving forward. As people with MRSA and also what Alma suggests, let's move forward. Now again, I'm going to get off the Alma issue for one particular reason is there are other people doing this for me. My purpose here is to drive the issue as best I can to let people know that there are options, but there's also very little time left. If you go to our website, mclr.us, you can download the initiative right there. It has a running clock. I think today it says 41 days. 41 days for us to get the document, and I won't again get into the details. Marcia might want to help me or make some suggestions. But the details of getting the documents in, submitting to the individual counties, getting them submitted, doing all the peripheral work is not only time-consuming, but it's also expensive. So here we are. Granddaddy Mike has said it. We've been saying it for years. We're all standing here, yet there's one deciding factor. It happened at the Emerald Cup. The MRSA folks themselves said it. Tim Blake said it, even though he stood up and supported others, said is the MCLR language is better, but they don't got the money. Well, we're standing here in the same situation. I'm not willing to concede, and I'm not willing to concede from a monetary standpoint. I'm not willing to concede something that wasn't properly crafted either. So I'm still willing to consider the options. The only option right now is MCLR. That is our only other option for all of the community because we can download, we can blast this community. We have the tools and resources to do this. We still need the funding. We have social media activist contracts available to us. They can blast millions of homes in California and get this done. So anybody tells you it can't be done, it still can. I'm not hanging on to threads for any other reason. And if I am, it's because we have to keep this message going. ALMA does have failures. It does have flaws. We need to address them. Listen to the people that are telling you about them and pay attention and make sure we address them properly. They aren't here to talk and to contest these issues and address them. They haven't been, and the ALMA people haven't. They've had spokespeople out in front of them, but they haven't been able to face it. And now we're at the finish line. You need to read it, and if you don't need it, you need to trust those of us who have been fighting for you this long that we know what we're doing and we need the help to do it. And again, my final message once again is funds. I love everybody here. I love Cannabis. I love Granddaddy. I love Ron. I love everybody here, and I don't use the word love. It's a tough word for me because it's an important word. But I'm not here to make any more new friends or love anybody more because I'm fighting for everybody, and it's getting very, very tough without funds. I need to leave this message to go back, this meeting to go back and raise more funds. I need to talk to the people. We sat at this convention, and he had wonderful people showing. The great Tony Serra was there. He mentioned Boston George and dozens of other. Ed Rosenthal has stood up at the meeting and screamed in the room, ALMA sucks, MCLR is our only hope. People are standing up, where's the goddamn money? And we need it now. So I'm not pleading only for us and us to continue this. This is long term. If we run into this continually moving forward, we're going to be overrun by corporate interests. We're going to be overrun by special interests if we don't step forward. And that means bringing every dime out of my own wallet. Even here today, it means going to the website. It means calling us and asking what we can do. And it makes sure that we don't put not only bad language into place, but we keep fighting this fight tomorrow, next year, and into 2018 if we have to do that. We can't give up. And I don't want to hear any more concessions until there is no other choice, and then we come up with other options to do it. So the reality is I do not support ALMA. I think it's flawed language. I do not support MRSA. I will work with every community and everybody I possibly can to provide my skills and network to help them work through the process, whatever it may be, but I still stand up for MCLR and the people that have stood behind that, and the attorneys that stood behind it as well. Omar Figueroa, Heather Burke, J. David Nick, Russ Goodrow, Lynette Davies, Richard Miller, myself, Granddaddy Mike, Dave Hodges. These are people who stood and put their businesses, lives on our line. And we've heard this before, but we're at the finish line now. There is no second chance for 2016. We do what we can with this MCLR program. You pay attention to what's happening. Steve Cubby, if you saw it today, released a press release announcing that he's extending $1 million in value of stock from his company to our effort. Sure, there's lots of different things about stock and numbers. Let's not confuse by the detail. Let's understand the purpose and intent. We're trying to draw out the people that have been claiming they support us, but they haven't opened up their wallets yet. Steve's willing to put his company on the line. Granddaddy's ready to put his reputation on the line. Dave has put his businesses on the line. I'm willing to stand here and take questions from anybody and answer anything, but there is no more mystery. We're not talking about the language. It's written. We don't have to discuss it. As this gentleman said, now we need to get together and figure out ways to make the right thing pass. Right now, there's only options left, and I've already discussed them. So other questions, I'll take them. I'll meet with anybody at any time. I'll show up at your event. I'll do whatever I can. Right now, I have to leave from here and go out and raise us a couple $1 billion and get this done. Aaron.
Everybody has to get 5 people to sign this thing. That's what we have to do. Everybody.
Marcia.
Come on, man. Everybody has to sign. We got to go there tonight. Get 5 people.
Marcia. Okay, thank you, Marcia. I mentioned about the printing. If you go to the website, there are printing instructions. There are some unique things to everybody's printer, so we apologize. This is certainly something unique. It's never been done in history, obviously. But this is absolutely legal and appropriate, and we can do it. So take the time. If you're not sure about the printing, you need help, take it to a printer. Ask somebody to print. This is a time when you step forward. Granddaddy said, I love cannabis. What has cannabis done for us? Now it's time for us to do to cannabis. If it means going down to FedEx and spending $10 to print a bunch of petitions to go stand at the corner yourself or give them to your friends, I'm willing to do it. Everybody should be willing to do it. I don't ask for much. This is what we're asking of each other. This is your one and only chance to finish this phase of the process and make sure we were successful. Yes, sir.
No, just like, what's the plan to get all of this? I mean, yeah, you can't just say, like, just go out and get something. Obviously, not going to.
Thank you, thank you. And again, every snapshot in time, what we're preparing as a result of the investor conference, there was some attraction to us and some support. So we are developing a plan, but I can't speak publicly about it, but we do, as I mentioned, there are social media contract organizations that provide massive blast opportunities. There are other networks. We can say that at the event, Julian Marley has joined with us. We're finishing out the details. He's going to provide his entire Instagram and social media network for us to support. So there's an example. If everybody steps up, we know Collective's got 10,000, 15,000 members. Blast. We know all our friends and people like Julian and others. Blast. This isn't going to be easy. This is historic times. We have to do something unique and something historic. We have to do something that's never been done before. But this isn't pie in the sky stuff. We're living the moment. Everybody sitting in this room is a part of this. And you can walk away and be a part and be something of it, or you could drive others to do it. But either way, just being here, you've done enough. But we now need to do more. This is our last chance. So thank you for letting my passion show a little bit, and very seriously, let me know what else I can do for everybody else.
Okay, give it up for John Lee. All right, so I just want to make sure everybody has the specific instructions and time to write them down, or pull out your phone and make a quick note, all right? Go to MCLR.us. There you can download the petition. Download and print the petition. Sign it. Get 4 other signatures on the website. Couldn't be simpler. Go back to the website, MCLR.us. Find the button that says donate. Hit the donate button. Pull out your credit card, enter your credit card number, and hit send. Is that simple enough? Does everybody understand what I hope they will do? What you can do? What you need to do? And I just want to make one more brief statement. Please don't come to me next year or 3 years from now when finally it's legalized and say, hey, Granddaddy, I know you're a real connector in the business. Can you help me out? Because I'm going to be looking at everyone and wondering where you were when I asked you for help. And I'm not going to be willing to help anybody who didn't help me when I asked for it. All right? I'm just going to be straight up about that. And now.
Thank you, Granddaddy Mike.
And now. We
Oh, go ahead.
Yes,
Woo,
thanks for your
Aaron donated
contributions.
money. Cash money.
Okay, so one more quick thing. I just want to summarize. We got a name today. I was happy to get a name. It's Judge Tiemann. Judge Tiemann in El Dorado County. We finally have a pro-cannabis candidate for judge that we can support. So we're soon going to have a list of all the people we need to recall because they're the ones that came out with these reflexive bans. But I'm really glad to have somebody that we can work constructively for to support. So remember that name. If you live in El Dorado County, get out the vote for Judge Tiemann. And now, our leader, Ron Mullins.
Okay. I don't know what I'm leading. So I just wanted to take my little bit here to talk about the election. Unless your head is under a rock, buried under a rock, you know that we are in an election cycle. At this very moment, Bernie and Hillary are eloquently arguing on PBS about who's more liberal. Just to clarify my position, I'm the vice president of Brownie Mary Democratic Club. As soon as I think the first time I ever heard Bernie bring up marijuana in a major national forum, I was sold. And I'm a dyed-in-the-wool LGBT Clintonista, person. We were won over back then by the Clintons, and we love Hillary. And I refuse to hate Hillary. And I think anybody who buys into that propaganda to help Bernie is just hurting Democrats and are helping Republicans. What I wanted to talk about, though, is how can we get Bernie for president? For real, okay? Because right now, we've got Hillary, who thought she was supposed to be president 8 years ago, and we picked Obama, and I'm sure the DNC told her, well, 8 years from now, it's your turn. So she's got the DNC, she has the establishment. Then you have Bernie coming along, and he's saying, actually, not just saying, but doing things pro-cannabis, pro-liberal agenda, anti-banks, and now the people are liking him. So the Hillary people are doing the same thing they did with Obama. Oh, he's not electable. Oh, this isn't gonna happen. Oh, the establishment. Oh, this and that and everything else, and just kind of poo-pooing and putting it down. Meanwhile, the Bernie Sanders campaign now has come in with their dank memes, which I think aren't helping anybody. That it's non-productive politics, and I just hope for every dank meme I see, somebody's actually voting for Bernie, because I really think that none of this internet chatter or this abusive internet interactions and manipulations and propagandizing of our own people is actually going to turn out to win any votes. If anything, it's probably going to poison the well and make people not want to vote at all. So, how do we get Bernie? Every single person that you've ever taken a puff with, you make sure they're registered. You make sure they read the article from Dope Magazine about Bernie. You make sure they know Bernie actually went in and put a bill through to try to reschedule. He's not just talk. He's not just pandering. He would do these things, if we elect him. Attacking the other Democrat isn't helping anything. Okay, if anything, it's just showing what you don't know. And if you're new into politics, we've always generally had a pretty civil discourse. I got a pretty raunchy. I was pretty butthurt over Obama. I was a big Hillary supporter, and I thought Obama kind of came in and clobbered her over the head. But I'm glad he did. And I actually think that we could elect somebody like Bernie, just like we elected Obama, if we take it seriously. We got to register to vote. We got to register our friends to vote. Every single stoner needs to vote. Every single person who hates the banks needs to vote. Every single person in the 99% have to vote. If you don't, we ain't going to get Bernie. So shut up on the internet, go register your friends, and make it happen.
So we have Marcia's going to come up here and make a brief addition.
I posted on Capital Community, whatever they
Capital
are,
Cannabis Community.
and Sac Normal and Brownie Mary and ASA. I posted your opportunity to work for Bernie's campaign in Sacramento. They're going there and they're making phone calls to other states as their primaries are coming along. So look at that information, and I post that every time I get the information. Look at that and go out and go to the Bernie headquarters and make calls with them. That's what they need. Yeah, they have debate watching parties and things like that. Those are fun too.
Yes, if you weren't here tonight, you could have been at a debate watching party with other Democrats watching the debate. Okie dokie. Lastly, we need to extend our weekly gratitude to the people at Perco's for hosting us. I need to remind everybody that has a tab to be sure and pay your bill at Perco's before you leave. That would be good. I need to encourage everybody to come out. For those of you who are listening at home and don't realize it, this meeting is held every second Wednesday here at Perco's, 3rd and J Street in Sacramento. Generally starts 6:45, 7 o'clock, and we're just about to bring it to an end now. We usually have a little open mic time. Is there anybody here that has an urgent message for the whole cannabis community that cannot wait till next month? All right, fine. With that, thank you for coming. Excuse me, did you want to come up? Natoma. Yes, we got a request for a ride commute home from here to Natoma. Excuse me. North Sacramento. If anybody's going to North Sacramento, will you give the kind lady a ride home? Okay, anything else? With that, we bring our third meeting to an end. Thank you very much for attending. A hand for all of us.